Unschooling. Are you like one of those crazy people that just does nothing with their kids all day? I mean, unschoolers, that's what they do. They do absolutely nothing. They just let their kids run wild, right? They never teach them how to read. They never teach them how to write. They're child led, right? So the child can do whatever they want all the time. They can eat what they want. They can drink what they want. They can go and, play video games all day. They can stay inside. They can lock themselves in their room. They can stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning and never get up in the morning. Whoa. That's not the kind of unschooler I am. I totally just bashed my shin. So what kind of homeschooler am I? That's what we're going to talk about today. So if you hear anything, I am making myself a cup of tea. It should be done in just a minute. So what kind of unschooler am I? I am an unschooler that puts a lot of effort into what I believe is right. So one thing that I feel like unschooling is important with is that you understand the whole child. You understand child development. You understand what children are going through at each stage of their life. And just like in the early years, forcing education as in book work is probably not the best thing. They have this wild imagination. They want to just play. And why are we like containing them into this small area and telling them they need to just do this, or to put them on like devices? And it just seems like so counterproductive, I guess is the right word. I don't know. But that's not innately what's in our children. Our children want to be outside. They want to be playing. Other countries are doing this. They are having wild success at forest schools or just outside nature play, nature schooling. Research it. A child in young age needs that in order to develop so many different things. Did you know that the way the body is and some of the skills, physical skills that the body has, actually helps brain development in all different ways? So we're learning, there's tons of books out there. I've recently listened to quite a few. There's a book called Anxious Generation that was pretty good. There's a book that's called Last Child in the Woods. Oh, Barefoot and Balanced. That was really good. That was actually written by an occupational therapist, and she was discussing how just our bodies are lacking in so much muscle tone, so much strength compared to even 50 years ago. Children that sometimes can't even like balance on a balance beam, and that was something that was just so common. I think sometimes we tend to helicopter parent too much, like, oh, you're gonna get hurt, oh, don't do that, you might fall, oh, do this. And I don't know that that's exactly great for our children. We weren't taught like that. For generations we weren't like that. I remember as a kid, like, you're out riding your bike, you were outside most of the day. And now we're kind of stuck in this inside like box, this dome. How are we supposed to grow our mental ability in this odd world of Minecraft? I don't even know. I know Minecraft is a big thing, so I don't really know what it is, to be honest with you. I just know it looks like little like Tetris cubes or something. None of my kids are into it. We don't have video games. We don't have, I know, my kids don't have phones. Are you kidding me? My kids under 18 don't have phones unless they need a Dexcom. I know, I'm that wild parent. I don't know. Okay, so now let's get to the practicality of things. What exactly does homeschool look like? So it's very hard to describe because everyone is different. For child-led unschooling, it can look a huge spectrum, but I'll just tell you what our households and what we do and what that looks like. So if you are a unschooler and you do it totally different, that's great. That's what works for your family. If you are a traditional curriculum type school, that's great. That's what works for your family. I didn't want school at home. I did that in the beginning. I did curriculum, I did school, and I brought it home, and that's what I was doing. But I found that it lacked so much. It lacked so much because I felt like I wasn't taking into consideration the development of my child. I was just kind of blindly going through curriculum. And then I had some kids that had some needs. And then it became stressful because I'm sitting there and just try again to read. Just sound out the word. Buh, buh. No, it says buh. No, no. Buh. No, not ba. Buh. Have you ever been there? Yeah. So I took a step back years ago, thankfully. I feel like the Lord showed me this. I took a step back and I made some decisions. And at first, I took a step way back. We had a year that we pretty much deschooled, which means do absolutely nothing and see what your kids are doing and what their interests are. And what happens sometimes when we're in a public school setting or we're being taught what to think consistently, and that's what we're doing like in a public school setting. And it's not to be rude or anything, it's just we're taught, okay, at age 8, we learn about American history. We learn about the American Revolution at age 9. We are taught these facts, then we recite these facts for a test so that we can pass the test so we can move on. That's pretty much like the scenario of public school and often homeschools that are using a curriculum. You need to know this material. Once you've learned that material, we can move on. I now, and I have been there, I now find life to be a living journey. And in that living journey, we need to see where our family is mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, spiritually, and make decisions from there. So I have another video that I talk about just my reading and how we develop reading in our home at this point. And so if you'd like, I'll try to remember to link that below. And right now I am going to go over how I plan. How do you plan to be an unschooler? Sounds silly, doesn't it? Unschooling means like you're unprepared, you're not doing anything. To me, it's absolutely opposite of that. I feel like we need to let our children be engulfed in experiences. I feel like our children need to be able to experience a whole spectrum of things. I don't feel like there's 5 subjects. I feel like there's probably 50 subjects that all can be learned and all can be taught. If I don't know them, I am happy to learn them with my children or find other resources for my children to learn. That's another question I get a lot is how do you teach when you don't already know the information? That's the beauty. How do you learn right now as a mother? How do you learn something new? If you want to know, how to make baked lasagna, you're going to find that information out, right? And if it comes out yucky, then you're going to find a different way. And if you really don't like that baked lasagna, you're going to learn from your mistake and be like, I really didn't like cooking lasagna that way. Wonder if I could do it a different way. Or maybe I don't want to make baked lasagna. Maybe it's too much work for me. Maybe I want to do baked ziti. That's fine. But you wouldn't know unless you tried. That's life, right? You don't know unless you try. So, experiments, experiences, hands-on activities, emerging in good books. There's so many things. So, practically, let's talk about it. Practically, right now, I am planning out my spring season. My baby is in the NICU, so this is becoming more challenging than if I was not. We do a lot of history throughout the winter because we're reading a lot more books. So we read a lot of audiobooks over winter or listen to audiobooks over winter. And we also read aloud a lot more than we do in the spring and summer. And that's mainly just because the amount of hours that you spend or can spend outside is more limited. So you might as well cuddle up with a good book. And we also do different types of handicrafts during the winter. It might be like sewing. We might have like sewing projects out. We might have just different yarn projects that we're working on, but those are really good like anytime throughout the year, to be honest with you. There's also, I do put an emphasis on handicrafts. There is actually a lot of reason behind doing different things with handicrafts, and one of those things is when you are putting your hands together, it actually does something to your brain that helps you remember what you're hearing. So there's all these scientific words for it. I don't know. I've read it a bunch of times in a bunch of different resources. You can look it up yourself if you'd like to. But when your hands come together to your center focal point, then your brain is able to focus in a different manner and helps memorize things or memory with things. So activities that involve handicrafts where your hands are right in front of you moving, especially when listening to an audiobook, can help that get into your brain. So you have to be willing to learn about development that way. So a lot of times we do handicrafts with audiobooks at the same time. So in the winter, we do a lot of historical fiction. I find historical fiction a good opening to a lesson. So say, I mean, I don't understand why we have to always read like a textbook. If I read you a story and it was about a young boy and he was hidden under the desk of a very important business meeting, one that involved something that was going to change the whole country. And you got to hear from the boy's perspective, being a young man or a young lady yourself. Would that change you a little bit more than just reading dry facts? If I told you a story about being on a covered wagon and what we were eating and what we were drinking and how I felt as a 13-year-old girl, and you're a 13-year-old girl, you may take that story in and make it more personal than if I just gave you dry facts about the Oregon Trail. So I think it's important that we engage our students, and a way that we can do that is through historical fiction. So I find a lot of times if I'm wanting them to learn something, then if I start out with historical fiction, and then as I'm reading the historical fiction book out loud, I get other resource books from the library. I don't force them to look at these books, but a lot of times they go to town on them. Totally go to town on them. Also, I might bring other games into the household. Professor Noggin has some fun, like just trivia type games or whatever, and those are fun to play. Like, hey, we're reading about this. Let's just play this game. Sorry. So there's actually lots of games to go along with things. So in the wintertime, it might be more social studies, I guess you would say, heavy, more history, those types, more history. And so then as we're moving into spring, I tend to try to think, okay, what are my kids like interested in right now? Even if there's like an interest, maybe there's an interest, or there was an interest last year, but I can't do it at that season, then I might take note of that. So say a couple of my kids actually were really interested in doing some bird watching, and they had expressed that to me, And that might not just be like, hey, I'm interested in bird watching, but it might just be like, hey, I really like that, like on a hike or whatever. They might be really like pointing out birds. They might be drawing birds. In the back of my head, I'm saying, oh, they're interested in birds. Let me try to pursue that for my children and help them see different things. So that might include videos of how to draw birds. That might be library books about birds. That might be library books on how to draw birds. That might be tutorials on how to watercolor birds. That might be guides to different birds. That might be buying binoculars. That might be visiting places that are good to do bird watching. It might be making a bird feeder or a bird house or a bird bath. It might be going to a zoo that has different exotic birds. It might be going to a pond or a lake that has different waterfowl. It might be going to a beach and seeing the different types of birds that are there. It might be identifying eggs. It might be creating eggs. It could be collecting different types of feathers. There are so many resources that could come about from just that small interest in birds. I'm saying this because birds is something that we are going to be doing soon. So because there was that interest of birds, I have bought off thrift books a couple bird books. I've also downloaded, that would be bird books as far as like guides to show them, it has like a guide that's like, if it's a black bird, it could be these birds. It's birds of New England. So they could look up those. I just bought everyone new binoculars. I just actually bought, it can be like multi-tools, but I just bought some new magnifying glasses because I thought that if we saw some feathers, then we could maybe look at those. And I also have a microscope, so we might like do some of that. I don't know. We'll see if it's something that interests them or doesn't interest them. But my plan is to, see where it goes. I also bought kites, and kites might seem different, but it's not entirely different because it's kind of like how a bird has flight. Can we make that happen with a kite? And how would the wings work? And then that could in turn spin off into airplanes or helicopters, or I don't know where it would go, right? So, but it's my job to be like, hey, I'm providing these resources. There's also a bird sanctuary. So I have a plan. Probably next month we'll go to this bird sanctuary type place. I do also know that the zoo has a section that has some birds in it. So hopefully over the next month we'll do that. I think I'll probably do maybe 4 to 6 weeks of bird type stuff. Just because there is such an interest, and I do know that some children were working on trying to express themselves artistically through that as well, and that takes time to build that skill. So I've also on YouTube found simple things on how to watercolor or how to draw birds, different types of birds. So I will put that into a watch later art list, and then I might put other bird materials, like zoology type bird materials, not drawing, into another watch list for the kids to watch later. On YouTube, you can set up different playlists for your children or for anyone that you want to do. It's not just watch later. You can specifically name a playlist. So if I'm doing like a unit on oceans, then I can write oceans and put whatever videos I want in there. And that's one way that it's able to work with me not being home, because they have the resources on that type of avenue for the children. So birds is another one. Sometimes I will just look around the area that I'm at and then look for historical sites, children's museums, art museums, any type of museum. And then I might just take the kids there and see if there's an interest in anything that museum or place, old forts, that place might engage them to want to further learn about what they're seeing. So we've been to, say, like Fort Knox. We went to Fort Knox in Maine before, and then we went during a Civil War reenactment. And even though they were interested in the fort at the regular fort time, they were really they ended up being interested in Civil War medicine specifically. So we looked up a bunch of stuff about Civil War medicine. So unschooling is more seeing what your kids is piquing their interest at that moment. But that also means that you need to give them opportunities for their interest to be piqued. Sometimes I might just be like, hey, it's wintertime and I thought it would be fun to maybe paint some cards. So let's just work on whatever painting. Or I don't know. I might just think of something like, oh, the kids might enjoy that, and I might just do it. But I'm always learning. I'm always open to see like what other people are working on. I'm always reading about and learning about child development, brain development, to see what can be helpful for my children. So I think it all encompasses into one. So basically, I just set these things up and I go forward with it. So it doesn't have to be this incredibly difficult thing, yet it is a little challenging because you really need to know your children, their interest, what's going on. You need to find and source materials. So to me, it can be a little bit more challenging than just saying, oh, I'm going to spend $500 and buy this curriculum and we're going to go through things each week. It's more, hey, this is what I want to learn about. Let's figure out how we can learn about all these things and what else could we like pull into it to make it a full unit. What else might pique their interest? Just like the feathers. I don't know if they're going to be interested in their feathers. I don't know if they're going to be interested about bird flight, or they're just interested in like birds in general. You know, some of my children may not be super into birds. At the same time, 6 weeks is just kind of like, hey, that's kind of cool. You know, so I tend to try to focus spring and summer more towards things outside. So geology, birds. I think we're going to do birds and then butterflies. And then I'm thinking that we might do, I don't know, something that like involves like waterfalls, and I'm not sure. I have to look at how I want to do that scope of things. But that's just kind of like where my brain's going. Like that would be fun and interesting to do. And then sometimes I plan those around someplace that I'd like to take my children. So I have these like ideas in the back of my head. There's a lot of different waterfalls that I had seen for years in southern Maine. But it was just kind of like, oh, you know, that's like 5 hours from here. I don't know that I want to drive there, do that, and then drive back. And now I think that I'm actually close enough that it could just be a fun day trip. So I kind of want to incorporate that into our homeschool at some point. Also, we're going to be right by the beach. So there are tons of different opportunities to scope out and see what might be of interest in the beach area. We did oceans last year, so I don't want to do like a generalized thing on oceans. I was thinking maybe because we have the aquarium, doing something on sea turtles. We also have access to a couple different zoos. So I'm thinking that we do some things on zoology. So that would be really interesting to do. And I don't know all the pieces that I'm going to pull into that. I'm sure there's a ton of different games and a ton of different activities to go with that. And then as we come around to the September, October type feel, then we start getting back into that, like, oh, I want to be cozy, and then that's when we start to do more history type things. So that's how I kind of work our unschooling, just what's the best opportunity to do when, and also what their interests are. But you can't just blindly be like, yeah, I'm just going to let them do whatever. I mean, a lot of the things that are considered in the whole unschooling realm have nothing to do with even school per se. It has to do more with parenting. I mean, if you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but then like you're not, like, you're letting your child choose whatever they want to eat and whatever, like, to me, you're teaching nutrition by example, by what you buy as for foods. You're teaching nutrition by having children help you in the kitchen. So all of those things I believe are really important. I'm not one just to like let them do whatever they want whenever they want to do it, because that's not life, right? Like, I want them to enjoy learning, but they also are going to need to learn that sometimes you have to work hard. They're also going to need to learn that we need to think of other people a lot of times before ourselves in life. We also need to learn that things don't always work out our way. And yeah, so there's so many lessons just in life itself. I don't know why, especially recently, a lot of those like parenting type things have come into this whole unschoolers don't do anything with their kids. They're lazy. They won't teach anything. Maybe there are some that are using the scope of unschooling, but most of the unschoolers I know are providing resources for their children, providing educational opportunities, and just listening to their child, even if they're not like talking to them directly, but knowing what they're kind of thinking and that they want to learn next. So I think that's the difference in child-led unschooling versus just this topical thing that's going around that says unschoolers do nothing. I think also that it's important. I know I had posted before about college not being our number one goal, and it still is not our number one goal. Our number one goal is to support our children in what interests lead that they want to learn about most. And I think that in a certain sense, that's not going to be the same for each child. I mean, an architect is going to do a lot better with geometry or higher levels of geometry than an accountant would need, right? An accountant would need more algebraic equations maybe, and a contractor or an architect is going to need more geometry. So as I see my children growing in certain areas, and if they have an interest in a certain area, then their curriculum and their teaching or learning needs to be tailored to what exactly they need. I had a daughter who is a writer, and she needed more resources in order to be that writer that she wanted to be. So I let her choose her curriculum so she could be a writer. Had I forced her to do, algebra 1, 2, 3, calculus, and geometry, then that would have taken away from her heart and her love of writing. So instead, I would rather her pick her curriculum or pick how she wanted to learn writing so that she could just get on with what she wanted to do. So I think that it's important to just know your child, or try to. I definitely am not a perfect parent, let me just tell you. I'm not. I'm just giving you like things that I have learned over the years, and I am hoping that you're able to use those things in your own way to make them your own, or to be like, that's great for her family, but it's not great for mine, and that's okay. We can be different. We don't have to be the same person, because that would be boring. Anyway, that is about it. I'm gonna finish my tea. I wish I had some cream. I hope y'all have a blessed and wonderful day.